the Campbell Union High School District Board meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order, and it's 5:05 p.m. Can we please have a roll call?
Trustee Gallagher.
I'm here.
Trustee Aerosmith.
Here.
Trustee Brown.
Present.
Trustee Goitia.
Here.
And Trustee Verich.
Here. All right, everyone is here. 1C is the adoption of tonight's closed session agenda. Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
All right, so motion by Stacy, second by Christina. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Gallagher.
Aye.
Trustee Aerosmith.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Trustee Goitia.
Aye.
Trustee Verich. Didn't hear you, Trustee Verich.
Aye.
There you
Yeah, got you.
Aye.
Got it.
Cut out for a second,
I
the
didn't
worst
do
time
anything.
possible. Okay, so 1D, public comment on our closed session agenda. I'm pulling up our digital blue card in which there are no digital blue card submissions. So we will move on to 1E, adjournment. We will be back around 6 p.m. Board, you should have the link to the closed session Zoom in your inbox.
Robert, I like where you are.
Me too. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, everyone. We're coming back from closed session. We're going to be another 4 to 5 minutes, and then we'll get started around 6:10. Thanks for your patience. All right, we're just waiting on one trustee and then we'll get started. Dr. Bravo, should I let Mr. Reeves in now or should I wait till item 5? Do you have a preference?
We're gonna wait until item 5.
Okay, cool. Thank you, John.
And then Linda's might be having some issues, so I'm gonna give her a call.
Great, thank you. I know she's been having some computer issues.
Audio. Ah, hallelujah. It's so annoying. Okay. Yep.
All right, thank you everyone for your patience. I know we're a little late coming back from closed session, and I think we find a new way to have Zoom technical issues every time. No one's fault, it's a new medium. So thank you for your patience there. We're gonna go ahead and fire back up the meeting. The board is returning from closed session. It is 6:18 p.m. And in closed session, we did not take any action. As just a reminder, because members of the board are joining via teleconference, all votes tonight are recorded via a roll call. While there's no physical location available for the public to join, members of the public may submit a request to speak through the public comment card, which is available on the district's website and on the agenda in board docs. And in case you didn't figure it out, you're watching this via stream on the internet. So if you participate in this meeting, your likeness may show up on that stream, which is on the internet. We're going to move to item 3B, the Pledge of Allegiance. Would anyone like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So please mute your mic. All right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 3C is the adoption of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. So there's a motion by Christina, a second by me. Any discussion?
Yeah, is 17A still required? Oh, it is. Sorry, never mind.
It is. We submitted one. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, any more discussion? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Gallagher,
Aye.
trustee Aerosmith,
Aye.
trustee Brown,
Aye.
trustee Goitia,
Aye.
trustee Verich,
Aye.
All right, with the 5-0 vote, we have an agenda, and first up is our student board member reports. Take it away.
Okay, so we're going to stick with the same structure that we have been sticking with, where we do school updates, then we do what's working, what's not working, and then we do personal updates. So at Branham, they're still having their Kindness Wednesdays, where ASB is sending out kindness grams to brighten up students' days on their Wednesday. Senior portraits are starting to happen, and photos are getting booked, and seniors have already started taking their pictures. In athletics, workouts are starting to happen with social distancing rules, so they can start prepping for next semester. Heritage Month for the Latinx and Hispanic community. Branham has begun to announce the distribution of the ASB packages that families have ordered. And the Branham Theater announces their soon to be production of a virtual play that can be viewed online. At Del Mar, they're launching a student hub website this week, which includes many ways for students to get involved and connect with each other digitally. ASB is also launching a student senate or feedback website for students to provide feedback about events and other things that are put out to the school. And at Westmont, in celebration of National Hispanic Heritage Month, they are holding many virtual activities throughout September. The second issue of The Shield, which is Westmont's newspaper, was released. And this week is Pink Week, which is Cancer Awareness Week. So yesterday they had the annual Pink Week hair cutting event where students came to Westmont to cut their hair and donate it to Locks of Love. And there are plans for a Spirit Week between Westmont and Prospect.
Yeah, For Boynton, they are doing now a perfect attendance awards. And so students are able to like cash in bonuses for showing up, and then they will get they'll get future bonuses for their cash-in tickets. One student has already graduated this year. Admin continues to do home visits. They've done 48 so far as kind of a check-in with certain students. There's been honor roll students. They've had 17 so far. They've had above a 3.4 GPA. And then Erin Palmer, who's the foods and culinary teacher, handed out 54 food kits for all of her students so that they made different meals at home. She shopped and put it all together, and students' assignments were to videotape themselves cooking and turn it to be graded. So they were really excited about that. And they had a photo they wanted me to include, which will be in the report when you guys can see it later. So for Lee, ASB held a Deaf and Hard of Hearing Awareness Week during the week of September 21st. They just finished their freshman class elections for Associate Student Body. And then this week, they're doing a Wellness Week information, which is being sent out daily on mindfulness practices, as well as some student speakers. They're still working on doing a virtual club fair on like a Discord server in the coming weeks, because they haven't been able to quite get that going. And then teachers are also partnering up with ASB by dressing up and recreating famous art pieces. And then voting is happening on their Instagram account and class level accounts. They are doing in a couple weeks a Latinx Hispanic Heritage Week, and then class level picture days are also happening this month for juniors, seniors, and sophomores. At Prospect, they've been doing Mindful Mondays, which are focusing on different mental health topics once a week. And they're also doing live sessions with the CUHSD counselor who can come and answer any questions, and it can all be done anonymously through the chat. They're also doing Fun Fridays, which are happening 3 times a month. One of them will be an iMessage tournament in the coming weeks, and so trying to keep some spirit together. And then we're still planning a Halloween Spirit Week, which will have some cool events that we're going to try and do out. So there's also a diversity and inclusion survey was sent out with follow-ups for any students who would like to continue. And this was given to all the students during the teacher cohort last week, and they had a follow-up meeting, I believe, today. There's also Positivity Club is doing like workshops once a week for an hour during lunch. And then Latinx Heritage Month with many events being spread virtually. And then teachers are also having designated study halls each week to have translators help non-English speaking students catch up. So, yeah.
And then what's working? Students are attending class on time. There's a lot of information being spread about guest visits from motivational speakers or counselors or college visits. Teachers have been really productive with their study hall, and it's been really helpful for students. Teachers have a set agenda for class, so it's a lot more organized this year. And teachers have been releasing students on time for study hall and lunch, which has been really helpful as well. Overall, there's fewer technology issues. People have kind of figured out the way that school is going to work now, so we've been seeing less issues with that. Information is being communicated well through Instagram. Teachers are constantly checking in on students to make sure they're doing all right with like Google Forms or just personal remind messages. Students do prefer it when teachers go over class lab, like homeworks, labs, essays, and other projects during class, and then post a video of the lecture. They find that structure to be a little bit more helpful because they get to watch it at their own rate, and they get to take notes however they want to. Canvas has been really convenient. At this point, I feel like I'm a Canvas advertisement because I say it every week, but Canvas has been really great. ASB has been planning many events so far, and they're really trying to get the student body together. And it's been really nice having 2 days of school this week because it was a great opportunity for students to catch up on homework, sleep, taking some time to themselves, which has kind of been impossible for many students since the year's begun.
Yeah, and then for what's not working, one common theme continues to come up from our Superintendent Student Advisory Council, which, just for anyone not aware, that's where we get all these updates from across the schools, that there seems to be more homework during the breaks. despite having the days off. So even these 2 days off, they felt like the teachers just add on a lot more homework instead. And even then, most students feel like in general, they are getting more assignments than they would in the normal year. And I think from our Westmont like site visit, the one quote was just, it feels like school 24/7 was kind of the one that people seem to agree with, and just wish there was a little bit more downtime and like separation of school versus home. And another theme that keeps coming up is that they still feel like the teacher outreach is not the most productive, which of course kind of varies by teacher, still needs to be kind of a consistent format all the way across, rather than some teachers doing this and some teachers doing this and students not necessarily showing up. Some students are still having difficult reaching out to other resources like college and counselors, and any other teachers. There's also low participation, I think, in school events and clubs, and that's where ASB is still really working hard these next couple weeks to try and bring that back. And another common one that comes up is that many teachers are not replying to emails and messages that students are sending. So by the time they send a message, the assignment is already late because they would have gotten to class the next day. Then the study hall is not every day, so sometimes they can't go and see those teachers. And then there's a couple of Canvas problems that one student reported. So number one is that students are unaware if their work has been submitted for work attached to the Canvas page. So if you link something from an outside site, there's been some concerns that it doesn't update after clicking submit and that you're not quite sure whether it's been turned in or not. And the second one is that quizzes can show up as zeros in Canvas before the teacher has actually graded them. And that's kind of just an automatic thing with the software that gives some students a concern. I think there's the 6-week grading period issues regarding grading deadlines and expectations, and students still not quite sure whether that was happening or not, and if it affected them for, I guess, sports or anything else. There are also teachers who will not respond to any emails or mind texts off the clock. Like we said earlier, it's not necessarily in between, but then over the weekend, they're not getting responses, or maybe there's just such an overflow of emails that nothing else is getting back to them. And are also many more, I'm sorry, actually, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of just updates on what we did. We had our Westmont site visit, as Riley mentioned. So we'll be giving Dr. Bravo a more detailed update, but just as a high level thing, there were many students who were LGBTQ+ or people of color who felt very unsafe on campus and they felt discriminated. And they definitely, that's what we spent a majority of the conversation talking about, how they kind of like the online structure because they don't have to deal with the discrimination as much. We had our SSAC meeting this week, where we talked about the past LCAP, and we further defined our goals for the year. And so we've kind of decided that we're going to take on mental health and cyberbullying this year. Please follow CUHSD_SSAC. Some personal updates. It feels like I've just been doing school all day. There really is no separation from home life and school life, and I feel like I'm just behind the screen all day. There really is no differentiation between classwork and homework, and it just all seems really burdening. I'm only taking 5 classes this year, and I'm already really overwhelmed by the workload. So this is probably worse for students who are taking 6 or 7 classes, and that's a majority of the class population. Not being in person is finally catching up. I feel like I'm units behind in all of my classes. We're around 8 weeks to school, and in most of my classes, we're on unit 2. And normally in person, we'd be on unit 3 or 4 by now. It's getting really hard to pay attention in class. I feel like there's so many more distractions around that are really tempting to do during class. I miss social interaction and meeting new people. I feel like the way things are set up in class, if you don't have a friend in that class, it gets really intimidating for you to ask for help, and you're always just stuck there by yourself. College apps have been really stressful, and as a senior, it feels really isolating going through this alone. I'm glad that Riley and I are both seniors, and we can kind of check in on each other, so we can still feel supported. But I feel like it's not common to have 2-hour calls with another senior every day. So I would recommend creating a process where there's a lot more support for all of our seniors that are going through this process. Just a few reminders, please register to vote. The California online and mail registration deadline is October 19th, so please make sure you're getting that done. Please continue to wear masks and remain socially distanced. I'm really sick of being at home, and tech is here to help. You can call 558-3080 if you have any tech-related issues.
And then other things for student board, we have been working on the homework policy a lot in the last couple of weeks, and we are still prepared to present it on the October 15th board meeting. So be prepared to see that next time. We had a meeting with department chairs yesterday, and then we reviewed some of their feedback. We also sent it to them to look over for the weekend, but then we're kind of be ready to go. So we're kind of in the end stretch there. And then some other just kind of personal updates. I think throughout like the SSAC and also just talking to like my friends, the homework load seems a lot more than in normal years. And I know we are missing some class time, but students still feel like they still end at 2:10 every day and then have many more hours of homework than they would in general. And maybe it's kind of approaching the making better use of the Wednesday schedule or making better use of study halls, which students aren't, but it still seems like a lot of people, even in all on-level courses, are just getting so much more homework than they would in a normal year. And so I think maybe we should try and reach out to different students and teachers for some feedback on this. And we're going to try and do that at our next site visit just to see like, okay, how much homework are you doing on Wednesday? Because that should be a time where you're really supposed to be knocking out a lot of your work because you don't have any other classes. So another reminder, college visits are happening virtually. There are over 90 schools coming to any CUHSD student. Please sign up on Naviance to learn more, especially for the juniors and seniors. Like another concern is that teachers are having different deadlines for assignments besides when you actually have class. So I might have a class on Thursday and then I have assignments due on Friday or on Wednesday when I wouldn't actually have it. And it kind of seems like a misuse of technology to me, just because students in a normal year just go and turn into class. I think a lot of people are falling behind because they have all these deadlines at various times. Like for instance, I had a class last week where I had something due on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I had that class on Thursday and Monday. So I don't really get how that sort of lined up. And that seems to happen with some other teachers as well. And again, I had another student reach out. I think I brought it up last time, but he was wondering why the private chat to other students is not turned on during class. Because if you miss something for a few seconds, or if your Wi-Fi tunes out, then you have someone to talk to. And especially if you don't have a person you can Snapchat on your phone or whatever, this would be a great resource, almost like a table partner during class when you kind of zone out or need help on a subject. And I think that was one of the concerns of just if we had that private chat on, we could just ask someone for a question or filler. And I think there's still a way where teachers would be able to like view the chat after, so it wouldn't be total inappropriate or like wasting time. And then I think finally, during today's teacher cohort, we took a survey that is very similar to the ones we take every year. And I never see the results, and I don't think any students do. And I just from my opinion, I felt a lot of the questions were kind of biased one way or the other and didn't quite have the responses they should have. I thought some of them were sort of repetitive, and I don't think us as students ever get to see those results or ever get to know how that data is used and which parts of the data are used. So I would wonder if maybe Jitanji and I could sort of work with the people who kind of view over those results and sort of be part of that decisions for like, how can we go from here and how can we make sure students are giving input on this too? Or like, hey, I didn't like this question, I like this, to just try and work through. Because I do remember in one of my classes sophomore year, we'd taken it and most felt it wasn't productive and that they didn't feel like people were really listening. So I think the students need to feel like they are heard, and most do not think this is how. I think getting feedback is a big part of our position. We're kind of representing all the students in the district. And I think there are more efficient ways we can be doing it than these 40-minute surveys that I don't think we're getting a lot out of them. So yeah. Also, where am I? Yeah.
That's exactly 15 minutes. So unless there's anything else, we can open up to board questions.
What is the
Riley,
name of this survey?
What survey are you talking about?
Sorry, yeah, we're actually done with the thing right there. I'm not sure. I know at least I've done it at Prospect the last few years. I feel like it's a district survey. It's kind of talking about like AP and honors. It's mostly talking about like kind of coursework and stuff. It ends up being a lot of the AP and honors focused questions and things like that, but also asking how comfortable do you feel on campus? How do you feel your teachers like support you and get you to the next place? And then it kind of has some questions more of like, what are your goals after high school? Do you feel like we're helping you get there after high school? And I just think I'd like to give some feedback on how that survey's made. It might not be a district one. I could be wrong. All I know is I've taken a similar one every year I've been in high school. And I feel like it would be a district type survey, but again, I could be wrong on that. So,
We took one really similar to that as well, but it also asked questions about like our mental health and stuff. And I just feel like the way the questions were phrased were really problematic, and they were really trying to get you to answer one way or another. And I don't think the students are really comfortable, even if they did have mental health issues, to feel honest in those surveys. So I agree with his point on the surveys.
And it sounds to me, trustees, like this is referring to the EOS survey.
yes, that's
So,
the one.
yeah.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
forgot
that's
the name.
the name of it.
But
Yeah.
EOS survey is the one we took today. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we don't make the questions on that survey. But that being said, I'd be happy for us to sit down with Jen Orlick, who kind of oversees the survey process, and go over results to you all. And
So this is not the Healthy Kids survey. This is something else.
it's not the Healthy Kids survey, but Healthy Kids survey is going to come soon, and it's somewhat similar.
All right.
Gitanjali, you said something about feeling alone if you didn't have a friend in the class to ask a question if you missed something. I know you have plenty of friends as a senior, you have other senior friends, but with 400 seniors, you might not have one in a particular class. Do your teachers ever put you in small groups and allow you to exchange contact information so that you have a group within a group you could confer with? Do you
Some
have that?
classes have set that up and some classes haven't. And it's, yeah, I feel like especially for people that are shy and aren't really comfortable reaching out, it just makes it a lot harder to be able to reach out because you have to first build that relationship where you can feel comfortable being vulnerable in front of someone else, and then reach out to them for help. So I feel like there's a lot of steps, and if a person isn't really comfortable in that class, it becomes a lot harder to be able to reach out.
Okay, thank you.
Shantley, thank you for sharing that. And just know that I'm a resource for you. If you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling stressed, if you need help reaching out for things, you can reach out to me.
Thank you.
You too, Riley.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you so much. That's going to take us on to our next item, which is item 5, recognitions and special orders of business. And tonight, I think Trustee Goitia is going to lead us in item 5B, which is to adopt resolution 25. And I'll let you tell us what it's all about, Linda.
Okay. We've had an employee who's been with us almost since our inception, and that is, well, our inception is as Del Mar High School anyway.
One really quick. Should I let them in the room now?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Let's give me 1 second.
please.
All about, Linda.
Okay. We've had an employee who's been with us almost since our inception, and that is, well, our inception.
Okay, so hey everyone, hey Horace, hi Debbie, you're on with the board. I believe you're streaming our YouTube, which is about a minute or 30 seconds behind. If you could mute the YouTube, and then I'll unmute you right now, in theory. There we go. Hey Jack, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right. And Linda was just about to introduce the item. So welcome to the Zoom, and I'll turn it back over to Linda.
Oh, hello, I can see you now. Hello, good evening, Jack. Hi. Jack, I think you were probably one of Del Mar's first employees. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
The opening year?
The opening year,
1957, right?
1962, I believe.
62 at Del Mar.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've been with us since 1957, if I have that right.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. It's the resolution that we have created honoring you, says Horace, but we know you as Jack Reeves. And
That's right.
you are an institution. You are a legend in your own time, the man, the myth, the legend, as they say. So I'm going to actually read this resolution because, my goodness, you've earned it. Whereas Jack Reeves has rendered 63 years of exemplary service to the Campbell Union High School District community. And whereas he served as a teacher at Delmar High School starting in, 1962 with a general teaching credential, which authorized him over the years to teach basic math, algebra, geometry, graphic arts, arts and crafts, English, social studies, and even driver's ed, basically whatever he was asked to do. And whereas his work encompassed an amazing range of school services in addition to teaching, with a work schedule beginning at 6:30 a.m. at the district office, continuing with his teaching day starting at 8 a.m., followed by more work at the district office until 5 or 6 p.m. Whereas the wide range of duties he performed constituted support of multiple aspects of teaching and learning, including handling all of the printing of school newspapers, handouts, programs, mailers, brochures for 9 schools prior to the advent of copy machines, and I will not go into what a laborious process that was, supervising the 9 employees of the AV department, as well as managing the varied inventory and keeping all machines in working order, and then assisting with our transition to the computer age by writing software programs to track student grades and attendance. I mean, talk about a continuous learner, Jack. Wow. And even repairing computers before we had a technology department. Whereas following this extraordinary career, Horace Reeves served on the Citizens Oversight Committee for every bond measure and parcel tax from 2007 to the present day. Now therefore be it resolved that the Campbell Union High School District Board of Trustees enter into the public record this resolution in honor of and appreciation for the diversity and faithfulness of the service of Jack Reeves to the entire Campbell Union High School District community. Passed and adopted by the Board of Trustees of the Campbell Union High School District at a regular meeting this day, October 1, 2020, by the following vote.
Oh,
And
thank
we
you very
have,
much.
I will be delivering to you, we have a little memento for you, which doesn't show up very well. I need white paper behind it or something. See, I'm
Yes,
not doing this very well, but I hope it's something that you and your family will enjoy.
yeah, they will indeed. Thank you.
Jack, it's been an honor and a privilege.
Well, you've been a blessing to me. You've, all these years, you've been nothing but love and blessings for me. And I can't replace that. You've indirectly, you even were instrumental in getting my wife 44 years. And that I have to praise you for. And there's so many, all these years of enjoyment for working for you. There wasn't a moment that I didn't feel your love, and I appreciate that. I don't think very many people have been able to enjoy what they're doing as much as I have for the Campbell High School District. So I appreciate your love, and I appreciate your putting up with me for so many years.
I've never seen you down, never seen you aggravated, never seen you anything but joyful. And I used to so much enjoy as a teacher coming into your space where you helped us all create things for the classroom. And it was just a wonderful thing. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you, Linda.
Godspeed to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's an honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack.
Love you.
You're our community. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jack. Let's do one big round of applause, even though it's over Zoom.
Yeah.
And we do a standing ovation, but you couldn't see it. So thank you for everything.
Normally there would be cake.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes,
can I move to approve this resolution, please?
you may.
Second.
Robert beat you to it. So we have Stacy, Robert. Any more discussion? All right, seeing none, can we please have a roll call?
Trustee Gallagher,
Aye.
trustee Aerosmith,
Aye.
trustee Brown,
Aye.
trustee Goitia,
Aye.
trustee Verich.
Very warm and thankful aye.
All right, passes 5-0. Jack, thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And be well, Jack.
It's been an honor, and I loved every minute of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, any parting words?
No, I've said it all. Or either that, or if I went on, it'd be another hour. So we'll just leave it. Thank you.
We'll continue.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Be well.
It's hard to follow that, but we're going to do our best. And we're going to move on to item 6, which is public comments. The board welcomes comments from the public. If you'd like to address the board, please fill out the digital blue card that is located on our website and on the board docs agenda. You'll be called on to comment when your item is reached on the agenda. If the item is not on the agenda, you'll comment at this time. Provisions of the California Brown Act preclude any action being taken on any item that does not appear on the posted agenda for action. Oral presentations and communications to the board are limited to 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes per topic. We do have one digital blue card this evening, which is on a non-agendized item. So we will can you call Jorge Pacheco Jr. now? And
While that's going, because
yeah,
while John's calling him, I apologize that I had to shut off my video, but realized I was going to lose my iPad power, and so I had to reconnoiter somewhere else in my sister's house. But now I'm straddling 2 boxes and have a cord just long enough that I'll have to look over here for board docs. So just so you know, I'm not looking at anything else. In my office, I have 3 monitors, so it's a lot easier.
thank you.
All right, we are ready to go.
Okay.
You're on with the
Hello,
board.
everybody. My name is Jorge Pacheco Jr. I'm a guardian of my little sister who attends Lee High School. I'm a 4th grade teacher in Mountain View Western School District and also a trustee for the Oak Grove School District. And I'm really excited that you are taking equity very seriously. I think it's now is a time more than ever to be brave, though it's so necessary to take our equity work to the next level, to the next step, and that is to introduce ethnic studies. Please bring ethnic studies to your school district. This is something that all students of color, and not just students of color, but every student needs. It's going to increase academic rigor. It's going to increase student test scores. It's going to increase empowerment for your kids and civic engagement. These are things and goals of equity, and I'm really happy that these are topics that you're going to be talking about. So please bring ethnic studies so that people like my little sister can start to feel proud about who they are through the curriculums they learn in their classroom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so that's going to take us to item 7, which is comments from associations. And we do not have any comments from CSEA or SEIU today, but we do have comments from the Campbell High School Teachers Association Treasurer Ben Bethune.
All right, I have Ben here.
All right, hey, Ben, you're on with the board. Take it away when you're ready.
Okay, good evening, guys. To begin, CUHSD would like to extend our appreciation to Rich Alapaz for his collaboration on the Catastrophic Leave Bank this year. The Catastrophic Leave Bank was negotiated several years ago as a way for our members to support each other through a voluntary co-op style leave bank geared towards lessening the impact of any catastrophic event to involved employees and their family members. Rich's work streamlined the enrollment process, and CUHSD is thankful for his partnership and efforts. Teachers are reporting the importance of continuing and deepening our work around racial justice and equity, and we look forward to the district's presentation this month. Every day we see evidence of just how critical this work is. The theme for the end of September seems to be exhaustion. Teachers continue to report feeling overwhelmed with the end of the grading period and the amount of work required in distance learning. One moment. They have shared mixed responses to the October 1st and 2nd PD days, which some have called a, quote, waste of time and energy. We hope that any variation to the schedule that may be considered in the future will be done only after a broad survey of teacher interest and need is conducted. Teachers have also expressed concerns over the protocol for drop-in administrator visits and for evaluations during distance learning. CUHSD has begun gathering feedback from teachers to present to Dr. Bravo regarding recommendations for a standardized protocol. Our bargaining team continues to negotiate over an MOU for evaluations during this year. given that our members are teaching in conditions that none of us were trained for, and for which no administrators have experience either teaching or evaluating. We are hopeful that we can reach an agreement soon that will help alleviate widespread anxiety. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ben. Item 8 is our superintendent's report. Dr. Bravo.
I think I'm going to have most of my comments when we get to the item on COVID, but I will give a little bit of my time to Assistant Superintendent Serda, just so I know that he's shared a little bit with you around developments related to ethnic studies, but maybe he can just give you a refresher in case that helps.
Good evening, President Gallagher, Board of Trustees. Yes, we've actually, I met with the Curriculum Advisory Committee yesterday. We had our first meeting. There are 2 teachers that are working closely in developing some curriculum. Mike Espinosa over at Branham with Ricky Aguirre at Boynton. And so that proposal for an ethnic studies course will be submitted at the next CAC meeting, which will take place, I believe it's on October 21st. So we're waiting for that. We have that proposal. The committee's excited about it. So are the teachers that are developing the curriculum and the course. And so we're hoping to have a decision by the end of the month.
To clarify, would that course then be available at every school?
That is correct. That is correct. And so what school, the way it works is the Curriculum Advisory Committee would approve the course, and then the school sites would then, based on student interest, would then activate the course so that we could go ahead and create it through the student information system.
And what would it be as an elective, or would it count as one of the social science? Or
The one that Michael Espinosa has recommended or is going to recommend that I know he's working on, it's more of a literature course that he is looking into aligning some of those standards that may cover some of the English 1 through 4 courses. So it may fulfill some of the requirements for an English course that are required for graduation. So that's something I have not seen the final product yet, but I know he sent me a couple of units. I did share with him some of the ELA blueprints, as well as the progression standards, so that he could compare and also look at how that can fulfill some of the requirements for the ELA courses, English 1 through 4.
so just to make sure that I understand, could a student then, instead of taking English 2, take the ethnic studies course and get the credit?
Correct.
Or it's just, okay.
That's what he's looking into right now, and he's hoping. I'm not saying it's an English 2 course. It could be one of the English courses.
Whatever, yeah, whatever, but
Yes.
it could count as one of the core courses.
Correct.
Okay.
We also do have, a couple of years ago, Del Mar did put forth an ethnic studies elective course that you approved. And this was a couple of years ago that I know was approved, but has not been offered yet. There wasn't a lot of interest from students, was my understanding. And so now we are hearing a lot more, especially from the Fairness and Belonging Committee. And now that I'm going to be meeting with the anti-racist team and the equity teams from each of the sites, there is interest in bringing a course and offering it at each of the sites. So we're excited for that.
Thank you, President Gallagher.
Yeah, no problem. 9A is information items. Item 9 is information items. Item 9A is Metro Ed Silicon Valley CTE. Linda,
meeting
big
is
movement
next
in the last week.
Yeah, nothing to report this week. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, item 10 is our consent calendar. Action on all consent calendar items will be acted upon in one motion with no discussion prior to the board vote, unless a board member or the superintendent requests that any item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion by trustees or any interested party. Each consent item approved by the board shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. Does anyone have any items from the consent calendar they would like to pull? I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, motion by me, second by Robert. Any discussion?
No.
All right, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Gallagher,
Aye.
trustee Aerosmith,
Aye.
trustee Brown,
Aye.
trustee Goitia,
Aye.
trustee Verich,
Aye.
All right, passes 5-0. Takes us all the way down to item 16A, the consideration of action regarding the district response to COVID-19. Dr. Bravo.
Thank you. And I think some slides are going to come up for this one. So let's give those a second to appear. And I'm going to go ahead and start speaking. And oh, there they go. So what I want to share with you all just is a little bit of a status check on what we know now in terms of what do we know, at least academically, how is distance learning working, not working for our students in terms of academic outcome. And what I'm going to share with you, the data I'm going to share with you really at this point raises more questions than it does answers. But we want to get those answers, and I just want to share this with you. Then I'm going to transition so that we start talking about second semester. So even though second semester is still a couple of months away, people are already starting to ask the question, what are we going to do with second semester? And so I want to propose to you all a possible timeline to engage with stakeholders around that issue. So if we can have the first slide, this is what we know now, taking a look at how students are doing in grades. So this chart compares, we chose 3 foundational courses, meaning these are the kinds of courses that you're going to have like every 9th grader or most all 9th graders are going to take. And this is just a comparison of passing, what percent of students are getting passing grades in these foundational courses after the 6-week mark now versus this same period last year. And so as you can see, there is cause for concern that the failure rate in these foundational courses, this is rolled up across the district, is more than twice that it would have been under last year's. Well, or in most cases, integrated math is just under more than twice, but it's still almost twice. So what is the reason for this? Well, that's what we need to find out. And it could be multiple reasons. And it could be that some of it has to do still with just, especially because these are freshman courses, just learning to do this new version of high school. And maybe some of this effect goes away as we continue on. Maybe it doesn't if we don't take certain actions. How much of it potentially is connected to rates of attendance or logging on in real time versus not logging on in real time, et cetera. So I just do want to share we're meeting with the principals next week to take a deeper dive and disaggregate the data further. We do know that, unfortunately, that outcomes are looking not as good, especially when we disaggregate and take a look at Latinx students in particular. So there's probably not a single silver bullet that is going to address this, and we're meeting with the principals again next week to take a little bit look farther into why. So I hope that we come up with some solutions, but again, I think we have to recognize that it is possible, and we've talked about this before, that distance learning can't truly replace in-class learning for many students. So with that being said, I have heard from a few parents, not the majority. I think the majority right now are probably taking more of a wait and see approach about next semester. They're not already thinking about it, but I have heard from a few parents wanting to know, when are we going to open? When are we going to offer an option for in-person learning? Especially because they are starting to see now in the press stories about schools opening in other parts of the state and even in other parts of the county. Although at this time, those schools that are opening within our county, we're really looking at elementary grades. And I think from talking to the superintendents of other districts that have high schools, it's definitely more complex to think about how to meet all the requirements to reopen that are placed upon us by health department guidelines. So the idea of reopening, but having to maintain social distancing in a large comprehensive high school is not an easy thing to manage. We have some ideas about how to do that, and the reopening committee that this district benefited from during May and June, they have some concepts about potential hybrid type models. But ultimately, as you know, we selected not to go with one of those models at this time. So how do we make the decision in regards to second semester? And some of the feedback that I would appreciate from the board tonight is around the timeline for making that decision. So again, while it's not a large number, I think there are some folks out there who they want to know now. What are you going to do in January? What's it going to be like after winter break? I think others are willing to say, well, let's hang back a little bit and let's learn from what's happening. What's happening in these schools that are reopening now, and how successful are they? And what are the best strategies to make sure that everybody's healthy? There was I think, a very good article online on Vox that I sent you all a link to. And for those of you who do Twitter, I sent one of my rare tweets of article recommendation because I really felt like it was very comprehensive and talked about the complexity of this issue. And I think is a good reminder that every community in the country is having to grapple with this, and we're coming up with all kinds of different answers. And the fact that we are coming up with so many different kinds of answers, I think it just shows in many ways that people of goodwill who want good things can still end up not agreeing on the how or exactly what to do. So I hope that we all keep in mind over the coming months that if a teacher says, I don't think we're ready to come back, it's not because that teacher doesn't care about kids. It's because they care about safety. Likewise, for a parent who says, I want my student to be able to come back, we shouldn't think that it's just because that parent is looking for daycare, because they really care about their kid and can be concerned about how is the emotional health of their student in the isolation they're having. What's academics looking like for them? So I hope that as we discuss different options over the next coming months, that we try and keep that in mind and not ascribe to people any negative motives, no matter which side of the discussion they might fall on. So if I can have the next slide and the one after this one. So this is just a little reminder to us all, but I know that this board is very aware of the many different stakeholders that we have, both internal and external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders being yourselves, of course, but then we have school management, like principals, assistant principals, et cetera. We have our labor partners and the leadership of those unions. We have support staff and teachers, external stakeholders, parents, students, and then we have three subgroups especially that we want to pay special attention of. It's both what we want to do, but also what the state does expect of us, and that is the subgroups of students with disabilities, English learners, and foster youth. And if we could have the next slide. So we propose to use methods, both one-way communication methods and two-way communication methods around this question of spring semester. So one-way communication efforts would include email updates from the district, staff, community, and student newsletter updates or updates inside of those newsletters, further board presentations and coverage in the board newsletter, online surveys, again, the use of thought exchange, the provision of information on our district website. Next slide. And two-way communication methods. So we want to harness the energy that's within some of the district's different committees or councils that were meeting before and still are meeting, and such as DLAC, or the District English Learners Advisory Committee, our new LCAP group, the Learning Continuity Attendance Plan Committee. We'd like to ask them to sort of reactivate around this question. My Student Advisory Council, the advisory council that I have with staff, that's a mix of both certificated and classified staff. The President's Council, those are the leaders of our different PTSA, homeschool clubs. And we're also been working with and have talked with Darren LaFranchi about creating a new special education advisory committee, as that is one of the targeted subgroups, and use those groups to help us, not that they're the sole decision makers, but that they're helping us gather information and take a look at the issues. Doing focus groups with support staff and teachers, management, students. And then some of the communication is with our labor partners, both in the meetings between my executive leadership and their executive leadership, and negotiations that I'm sure will be part of the process. And then social media. And it wasn't that long ago that some of us, as Trustee Gallagher knows, he joined me on a number of Facebook Live Q&A sessions. Trustee Aerosmith worked with Germán Cerda around doing some Spanish language ones. And we had a cadence where we were doing those with some frequency during the summer. And we've had a little bit of time off, but I think we'll probably want to look at restarting some of those. So if I can have the next slide. So this is the proposed timeline in the form of some milestones that I will look forward to getting your feedback on. So October, I'm proposing the time in which we would be soliciting community input through our multiple methods of two-way and one-way communication. This is a widespread kind of meaning of the community, everyone in the community. In November, to do any kind of work, both to keep those dialogues going, but then to take any kind of special action, we think, especially to reach those targeted communities that sometimes we don't get as much input from as we would really like to. And so we feel that we need to be able to present you trustees a recommended spring 2021 plan sometime the week of November 30th. And we don't have a meeting that week because we have one meeting in November and then the one after and before the Thanksgiving, and then we don't have another one until I think December 16th. And that's a long span in between. So I would like the board to consider a special board meeting around this issue on either November 30th or December the 1st. And then with December, we would update the community on any progress of negotiations with labor partners. For as you may remember in our MOU with CHSD in particular, we already established some bargaining dates in December. Should the district move forward with a model of providing education other than full distance learning or the full regular traditional model. So if there is some kind of a hybrid type model, we have committed to negotiate some days to negotiate the effects of that kind of a model. If I can have the next slide. Oh, what do you know? It's time for questions.
All right, trustees, questions, comments. Bob, can you highlight again, what are the big things you want to get away from this time? What matters right now in terms of what the board thinks?
I think what matters is one, when do you feel like we should be making this decision? Is this a decision that you all feel like, no, we got to make this decision, before the end of October, not be looking at it in November? Or do you want to, or do you feel the right thing to do is to take a little bit more of a let's step back, let's monitor what's happening in these other places where schools are reopening before we try and go too far down about making commitments about next semester. So that's one, is sort of the pace of when is the right, when should we be holding out to make this decision, sooner rather than later?
Really quick on that one, your recommendation is to wait until the 30th of November. So take a more wait and see approach.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I just want to get it all lined up.
Yes.
Great.
And so, some of you may feel, no, we think we need to decide sooner. And some of you may feel like, what, we should wait longer. We shouldn't decide until after New Year, like the week before. So that's the one thing. And then just secondarily around any concerns or things or expectations, or what you would feel that engaging with the community around it, what would it look like to be a success in your opinion? Those are the two items I'm looking forward to your feedback on.
I have a question. If we didn't reach a decision until the end of November, we would have only a few weeks in December to negotiate working conditions around the return or partial return or whatever we were opting to do. Is it enough time?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the MOU that we have with CHSD already those teams already somewhat contemplated this question and have 3 days in December already designated as bargaining days if needed.
All right, so I can kick us off. My quick thoughts. I was very happy with the way the team did this heading into this school year. I thought I think there was a lot of evidence that there were a lot of voices that were considered, that were not just considered, but actually incorporated. And I think that we did bring the community along with us. And I think that's comments I heard from a lot of different people about just, even if they didn't agree with the decision, right? They were, I don't fully agree with it, but I understand how y'all got there. And I think replicating that in whatever way you can, I think it seems like it's baked in here. In terms of your actual questions, I think one, I'm a big believer in people do want to know now, right? That is natural. That is probably the normal feeling that people are going to have. But the longer we can hold off that decision, the more we're going to know. And every day that goes by, we're collecting more data about what people think and what's actually happening in the world. And we're going to have a better result that they're going to end up being happier with. And so November 30th feels right to me. And in my head, the first day we come back for semester 2 is an arbitrary deadline. It could be that we start in distance for 2 weeks and then go back to some hybrid model, right? So
Yes, that's possible.
that feels right to me. I also think that that might even be the best way to do it, because people are going to be like, well, you want me to go on vacation for 2 weeks and then come back and do this like weird hybrid thing that I'm not ready for? Like, no matter what we do, we should probably kick it a couple weeks. And then engagement, I think I actually just touched on that, so I'll be quiet now.
Thank you. Not for being quiet. Thank you for your thoughts.
No, and for being quiet.
So I'm going to say something that I don't normally say, but I do concur with Trustee or with President Gallagher on his assessment of the planning process that we put together to figure out how to reopen. There was a lot of challenges at the end of the school year and trying to figure out how we should reopen, not, this expectation of a, go, no go decision on, from the health authorities, and then finding out that they really didn't give us a go, no go decision. They really just gave us a set of guidelines of, if you decide to have in-person learning, this is how you have to do it. And it's not any different than any other organization. If you're a restaurant and you want to be open during this, there are guidelines, right? You can't have indoor seating. You have to, pick up, no contact this and all this other stuff. So that's really, to me, a big chunk of what we need to evaluate for a decision. The decision is really, are we continuing in distance learning? Are we capable of bringing students onto our campuses and meeting the guidelines that have been set aside by the Santa Clara County Public Health Department? Because that's what guides all of this. So I am more interested, not so much in when are we, I want to be able to set an expectation for everybody that we should have a decision by this date. But until we know what the decision criteria is for making this decision, until we know that we can meet the guidelines, that we have a plan in place. A big thing that's coming up right now is around ventilation. If we're going to have students returning to school, especially in the wintertime, that we want to make sure that our classrooms can provide the appropriate ventilation. How are we going to test employees and students? Are we going to have, how easy is it going to be for teachers who do choose to return to the classroom for in-person testing to be able to get tested regularly? And then how are we going to do the contact tracing? The other piece of the, Santa Clara County Public Health Department guidelines is that we have to prepare and submit safety plans to the county, both public health and county of education and Office of Education, on exactly how we're going to meet the requirements. And they're really there to help us in interpreting the requirements and making sure that we can meet them. And if we're struggling in any areas, to provide assistance and things like that. So we have to set up, we have to know how we're going to engage on that enforcement piece of it. So I don't really want to make this decision based upon what feels good or what feels right or my gut. I want to make the decision based upon our readiness to be able to bring more students onto campus, and whether or not we can provide a quality experience for those students. And I also, as I mentioned last week, I just want to, not everything that we have to do has to be about in-person instruction, because there could be ways that we can figure out how to bring students back on site so that they can just have some social time, some social emotional time, and do some social distance activities that help with some of the isolation and loneliness and things like that that our student board members were reporting about. So those are my thoughts.
I can jump in. So in terms of the first question that you asked, Bob, and timeline, right? If we think about we're at October, November, December, if we think back to the initial decision we had coming into the school year, that would put us at May, June, July, with 2 weeks until the following term. So if we think about what we knew at the beginning of May through the start of school at August, things changed drastically during that time. And so that's where I'm coming in thinking that this timeline makes sense to me. I do think it is important to be able to communicate with our community when we'll get the answer, that of the stress, knowing that there is going to be an answer at a certain time. It won't alleviate all of it because, as Trustee Gallagher mentioned, we are just curious and we want to know. And I think even more so when we're in a situation where we have so little control over everything, having information and feeling like we have decisions helps us feel like we have more control. And so I think that's why people really resonated with the amount of information that they were getting from Dr. Bravo and the rest of the staff through the summer and through that decision process. I think something to be very clear on is the purpose and role of, can you hear me?
Yeah, it cut out for a second, but I think we captured what you're saying.
Okay. The purpose and role of the feedback from the community. I would not want anyone to think that we are doing it just to do it and we're not going to pay attention to it. At the same time, I don't want somebody thinking we're just going to go with whatever the majority says based on these surveys. We're doing this in coordination with the county health, guidelines, the best, professional expertise that we can bring into it. This is one piece. And so just making sure in our messaging, I think that all of us understand that, but that's not necessarily what somebody who's getting these surveys is thinking. The second thing, in terms of feedback and I always ask myself is who's not at the table, who's not getting to give their input. I think there are a lot of different ways for people to give their input. All of them are technology and literacy related. And I know that it's really hard to do something else, but I'm wondering about if there are parents or community members who do not have high literacy skills or technology skills, how can we get their input as well? And so in terms of those subgroups, student and community members, I think creatively about who are we not hearing from and how can we get that input from them? And those are my thoughts.
Great.
All right, Linda or Robert?
I very much like what Christina said about each piece being a piece of what we have to do. And it's not one or the other, that it's an effort and coordination. I like that and I appreciate that. I need to excuse myself from the meeting for about 3 minutes. I'm not feeling well. I'll be back in a moment.
Okay, great.
Most of the stuff that I was concerned about and most of the stuff that I heard from Dr. Bravo are the things that I'm looking for. So Christina, Stacy, thank you very much. Kaylin. I'm glad to see we've got a very broad list of people. And Christina, thanks for bringing up there's some others we might want to look at. So this obviously is very important. The teachers are telling us how tough it is. Our students are telling us how tough it is. And but we want to be safe. And so lots of things to consider.
Yeah, if I guess add a couple things, I think the importance of all of this is higher now than it was earlier. And it was very important earlier for a couple reasons, right? One, I think we're going to start seeing elementary schools go back because it is much easier to send younger kids back due to cohort models, right? And that may not be something that people fully grasp because the logistical nightmare of doing this and following everything that Stacy was talking about, right? The county guidelines and the state guidelines is much harder at a high school level. So I think communicating matters just even more than it did before. And it was already the top thing. And I think people are starting to see some parts of their lives go back to some sort of like pre-pandemic version, right? I could turn on this laptop and have a football game on right now, right? That's not in a bubble, right? There are people who are going on vacations. Your Facebook looks radically different than it did. And so I think people are coming into this with a different, I guess, mental frame of where we're at, whether or not things are necessarily actually safer today than they were 6 months ago. So it's a tough reality that we're in. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And I think, that's been part of the discussion in some of our neighboring districts. Like, for example, asking the question, well, if we can't go to the movies, why can we sit in the classroom? Right. And, those are fair questions. Now, there can be great answers to the difference between the two, but I think they're very fair questions. So trustees, based on what I've heard, I'll ask Michelle to send out basically a poll for you all to look at November 30 or December 1.
Yeah, I think the first time I think the message from every board member was whatever y'all need, right? Whatever amount of meetings it is, like this is a global pandemic emergency. We are here. If you need a contract approved or, whatever that is, like definitely let us know.
I appreciate that, President Gallagher, because I think, you talked about how in some ways it feels like things are going back to normal. And it can create a little bit of almost where I think we forget that this actually still is really very much kind of emergency. But it doesn't, it might feel less like that because, you can go to, a restaurant and yes, you're sitting outside, but you can go to one, right? But it is very much still, like, as you said, a scenario in which there's still a lot we don't know.
Well, I listen to Dr. Cody every week when she briefs. And what she tells us is that while, yes, we're in the red tier and we've maintained it and, things are looking good and they've got, I think, better ways of measuring things, right? Before we were just looking at cases and we weren't looking at as a ratio of population. So it didn't really, the whole thing about data, right, is context. But the message is still clear from Santa Clara Public Health Department. This disease is still being transmitted in our community. And we have to, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but, what we had before COVID, that world, we're never going back to that again. We're striving to get into a world where we coexist with another virus. This is just like with HIV. It's a new normal. Throughout Asia, after a virus like this, SARS, and then in the Middle East, MERS emerged in the early 2000s, they were told face masks. And when you go throughout Asia, even today, it's very customary that they wear face masks because that's what the new normal is. So we're still trying to figure out what that new normal is going to be and there's always going to be risk. Risk management isn't about eliminating risk, it's around managing it, right? It's about being prepared for what's the worst thing that could happen. So, so with that in mind, I really just want to make sure that with everything that we do, with all the communications that we do, that we always keep the why out in front of people. Why is it important for us to get students back on campus? what types of things should they be doing? And you can have different answers for different cohorts of students, right? That needs to be an important part of the messaging, because if, right now, I've been a trustee for a long time, and I've been a trustee on 2 different districts. I have never seen this much division in our community over reopening, and this much emotion over reopening. And we have to be, it's very important for us to be the people that deliver the facts. This is what's important. This is why we're doing this. This is, and your safety, both student and employee, is at the top of the list. And we're not going to do anything without knowing that we are mitigating any, the risks that come along with it. So,
And Trustee Brown, I want to reiterate, what you're talking about, division. And, this is a challenging situation, because based on just some conversations I've had with students, it'll be rough. It's not going to be easy, because there's going to be some divisions inside of households where either you have parents that would like the kids to go back and the kids don't want to, or the other way around. So yeah, I hope everyone treats each other well, as we go through this.
And understand, like you said earlier, good intentions on all of this. I will just share from the parent perspective. It is the hardest thing in the world as a parent to see your child struggle. And distance learning is new for all of us. We've really only been doing this for 12 weeks. We did it 6 weeks in the spring, and now 6 weeks, or maybe 8 weeks now in the fall. We're getting better at it. That's good. We're measuring, hopefully, what matters. We will continue to get better at it, because that's what we do here. But moving into moving into in-person schooling isn't necessarily going to be better than distance learning, because it's new and different now with the guidelines and things like that. So I just want people to understand that we have to, I think the word I want to use is grace. Have some grace with each other. Allow us some grace, and give some just. I'll leave it at that.
Bob, we touched on this once before, but we're in new territory when we do return to school in terms of attendance. The concept of mandatory attendance is going to become very problematic, because, as you said, there are going to be some divisions within households. How are we going to be in a position to say to somebody who's afraid to send their child back, or a child who's afraid to come back, you are required to be present or else? And if we are going to have a certain number who aren't willing to return when we do reopen, will we have to hire extra staff to continue administering distance learning? What will happen in that case? I mean, that may be something we have to talk about, but.
Yeah, I think that those will be issues that we talk about, but, and just in terms of sort of like recognizing the continuum we're talking about here now, I think at best, we're even to say, okay, we're going to have some kind of it would be a hybrid option. A full day probably, is not really going to be an option. I think that whatever, and I say the word option because I think most likely that's what it will be. It will be an option, if any. If any, it would be an option. So we wouldn't be insisting. I don't have a crystal ball, wish I did, but my sense would be that we wouldn't be insisting that someone come, but that there may be an option for students to come. And again, at best, it would not be the full day program.
Right. So I know the point of this was to get kind of big picture thoughts on timing and timeline. Do you feel you have what you need for this
Yes.
meeting?
Yes, thank you.
Board
So,
members, is there anything else you want to add?
yeah, so Bob, is progress on this timeline, on this decision points, are you going to be including this? We've got like 14 meetings in October. Are you going to be, seems like we have a meeting almost every week in October. Are you going to be updating us in your, in this section of the board meeting on progress on this?
Yes.
All right. Anything else? All right. How's everyone doing? Do people need a break? Do you want to soldier on?
Go on.
All right, great. So let's go ahead and move on to item 16B, which is discussion regarding recommendations relating to resolution 4 in support of racial, socioeconomic, and educational equity. Before we jump in though, we do have a public comment. So can we get Amanda on the phone, John?
Right, I have Amanda here.
All right. Hey, Amanda, you're on with the board and we're on item 16B and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, I shouldn't need 3 minutes. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that we are discussing this tonight, and I look forward to hearing what Bravo and the board have to say about addressing inequity in our district. And I did want to make one point that can you hear me?
Yes.
Amanda, we heard you. You want to make a point that, and then it cut out.
Oh, okay. Bravo and the board. Okay, so should I keep talking?
Amanda, can
Yeah, you should
you
probably
mute your
mute the
YouTube
other
video in the background?
Okay. Okay, so now I'm back.
All right.
I did want to raise, sorry, I'm having connectivity issues.
It's okay. We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
So the last point I just wanted to say is that watching earlier tonight, it was mentioned that none of the schools have ethnic studies, and Del Mar has had ethnic studies the last 2 years. And that was the last thing I wanted to say. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. All right. So item 16B, Dr. Bravo. Do you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you, President Gallagher. So trustees, since the resolution from the summer that we had in support of racial, socioeconomic, and educational equity, I've been assisted deeply in this process with Assistant Superintendent Cerda. And one of the things that that I met with him and asked him to do is I said, you know, let's get the Fairness and Belonging Committee together and talk with them a little bit about next steps. And that committee was formed really to address some of these issues. Although it wasn't exclusive to racial equity, I think the way that the resolution was pointing at. And so Assistant Superintendent Cerda put a call out to folks of the Fairness and Belonging Committee and met with the two that wanted to meet with him and help us around this question. And what they proposed was that we should have a structure that really was a structure that had really a greater link to site between the site level and this district structure. So they said, you know, let's have each site have its own equity committee, and that those committees then make up the district level one. And what they also discussed is they said, and you know, to put a point on what the purpose of the district committee should be, it should be a different name. And specifically, they said, you know, let's have it be the anti-racist team. Fairness and belonging is a very positive way of putting things, but I think they felt it was important that we put more a point on it. And I think I have a slide for this time, just for a handy visual. Here it is, coming. Okay, this is it. It's just a one slide thing. It's not a big deck. So basically, so the site equity teams, and these teams have already been formed, actually, because Superintendent Sarah has also worked with the site principals then around realizing, you know, this process. So the site equity teams, that what was put out there is this is the sort of the minimum list of members. So it can have more members than this, but this was the standard, that each site equity team would have at least 2 teachers, at least 2 students, BIPOC. That's a term that I've learned this summer. I didn't really know that as a thing before, but Black, Indigenous, people of color. I mean, I knew the terms Black, Indigenous, people of color, but not BIPOC. But that's a thing now that people use. And at least 1 counselor, at least 1 of the assistant principals, and at least 1 classified staff member. It's not meant to be the limit of who would participate, but at least that we would have a standard across sites, and that these teams would not just be at the site level, but we would have teams by district office division. So the business division would have a team, the ed services division would have a team, the human resources division would have a team. And the purpose of these teams would be to look and examine what kinds of practices and policies do we have present, either within our own site or our own division, that are working against equity or for equity. Let's identify, you know, our policies, procedures, and which category they go into. Create recommendations for change, carry out those recommendations, but that we would have 3 to 4 times a year, these smaller teams come together, kind of a convocation almost, to create the anti-racism committee. And then as a way to sort of assure that the work stays in front of you, and that you have a connection to it, that we would want the members of that committee to present to you, the board, at least 3 times a year. So kind of a quarter, like they meet quarterly, and then somewhere in between those meetings, they make reports to you. This really is a structure both to hopefully make change with, again, at these site or division levels, but also that could report to you not only the work that they're engaged in within their context, but also recommendations. Because ultimately, you know, the work of district policy is the board's work. And the success of any of these efforts will ultimately rely on your support. And I know that this is an important issue to you all, and making the decisions related to equity are not always easy. And if you adopt the point of view, at least the one that I currently, you know, have come to, is that equity is about equity of outcomes. And so to get equity of outcomes often takes work, and it can't be thought of as sort of an add-on, but something that we have to do. And, you know, trustees, you've made decisions that I think were very equity-based decisions. They're the right thing to do, but they weren't easy. And some people didn't agree with them, and perhaps still don't. I'm talking about moving graduation requirements to align closer to A to G standards, or even the contract we have with EOS. and we we heard a little bit about the students, about the part of the EOS process that may be not fun for everybody, and maybe we need to do a better job of explaining the why for the students, about why they're doing it. But it has reaped real results in terms of the number of BIPOC students that are participating in AP programs. And there are some, as I mentioned, folks that don't agree that we make that investment. So, I just want to kind of put that out there for folks, that you have shown a willingness to put the effort in, and I appreciate it. But to make further gains, there will be the need potentially to make decisions that some people are not going to agree with, and will take some courage, some bravery. And with that, I just want to give Assistant Superintendent Serda. I didn't tell him in advance I was going to do this to him, so don't hold it against him if he's like, no, I don't want to add anything. But if you want to add anything, Herman.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bravo. Yeah, I also want to add that we're also changing the structure of our meetings. For example, we're actually holding principal equity, monthly equity meetings with them. And it's being facilitated by Jen Orlick, Emily Hansen, Darren LaFranchi, and myself. And so we're engaging in these conversations. The other thing is we're also restructuring the assistant principal meetings, where before we used to call them discipline meetings and attendance. And so now it's really more about the equity work. And so we're being more direct and intentional in, these are the assistant principal equity meetings. And so we're engaging in these same conversations around disproportionality, suspensions, attendance. And so we're going to continue with this work, and that's a structure that we're going to continue to move across all the meetings that we're holding. Emily is also working with the counselors, and so that's something that's going to trickle into the counselor meetings as well. And we're gradually building this structure so that we continue to engage in these equity discussions. So that's pretty much all I wanted to add. Thank you, Dr. Bravo.
Thank you.
Well, I can start with just some quick thoughts, and they'll be quick. I do think that this is a moment in time where I think everyone is just trying to meet the moment, right, with what is happening in our country. And I think many more people recognizing that we need to make some serious changes so that everyone can have equity of outcome and have opportunity. I think we have an example of it in our next item, right, where Linda and Stacy, I think, wrote a beautiful resolution about how we can continue this work as a board. I really do like this structure. I'm a believer in that if you want to have real change, you have to create structures that are lasting. You need to empower people to run with the work, right? And I think this does that, or at least is a great first attempt at that. And we're going to learn what happens over time. The one thing I have, the one question, it's not actually a question, it's more of just something I hope to see, is that maybe in our second or third report, just how is it going and what needs to be changed or adapted to make it more effective. Those are my comments, and I will go on mute.
I only have one comment. I'm going to start by quoting Shakespeare. What's in a name? Will a rose by any other name not smell as sweet? When I look at the name District Anti-Racism Committee, I wonder where's the room for the students who are LGBTQ, who are not part of the Black and Indigenous people of color cohort. I wonder about students who might be Muslim, who are also not necessarily, part of this BIPOC. So that's my only question is, is this the right name for the work that we're doing?
Oh, were you gonna jump in, Kayla? No.
I was just gonna ask if people had other thoughts.
Well, you know, we can make that rhetorical.
Yeah, well, I mean, the answer I would give is that the resolution specifically, I think part of it was adhering to the language of the resolution. The resolution specifically names racial equity in education. So it's not that issues related to gender, religion, that those things don't matter. They still very much do. But it was related specifically to the language of the resolution.
I understand that, but we're still doing equity work here. And, you know, part of equity, you know, go back to that Fairness and Belonging Committee. There was a reason why we named it Fairness and Belonging, because belonging is an important part of the journey to equity. And I would just be concerned about naming this something that might feel exclusive or not exclusive, or would not be welcoming to all marginalized communities in our district. That's my only point.
Let me pose it this way, because this is a recommendation to the board. Does anyone disagree with Stacy's comment that maybe we could find a way to adapt? I think it's a point well taken.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, and I still want to be very clear that the work we are doing is actively anti-racist versus like neutral. And I don't know that that necessarily has to be in the umbrella name of it. I do think that that is an important part of this work.
All right, other thoughts?
What we're going for is anti-bigotry, but that has an even uglier sound in some odd linguistic way. We're a little short in our language of words that encapsulate what we're trying to achieve. And that says something about the fact that we haven't focused much on it. You know, that old thing about Eskimos having 26 words for snow because it's an important part of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
This work maybe hasn't been an important enough part of our cultural life that we really have the words that we need yet that will, you know, encompass everything we want to encompass. But I agree with Stacy. I don't want anyone feeling left out of our care and concern.
I think a couple, what?
Oh, I say I might recommend that if we agree on that broader point, that is feedback for staff that they can work. We don't have to wordsmith live.
Right.
Yeah.
Across Zoom, right? But if people agree with that point, we can make that point and then move to the next stuff.
Okay.
Bring it back.
That's, I mean, love what you presented, hate the name.
I was just saying, like the concept, like things that we've talked about here, I think the overarching is we're going to listen to each other. We're going to listen about what people have to say. We're going to hear things that they've fought through, things that they've had to adapt, and how do we bring everything around? But it's really around talking and listening.
Well, we can't exactly call it the welcoming committee.
Yeah. But
I'm
glad to hear that sites are working on it as well. I think it could be different. There could be some slight variations just because what's important right away. So I think that's a good idea. So thank you for dreaming to do it that way.
And just to throw it out there, CASE actually, they formed a committee. I think they call themselves the Intersectionality Committee. Just letting you know.
Out there. So I don't think anybody will be surprised that I have a lot of thoughts on this, but just to kind of get you to my little. I'm in grad school and I've been just reflecting on and doing a lot of different reading. And one of the themes that has come up is just this, going back to Trustee Gallagher's point in terms of meeting the moment and this being a turning point. You know, we've talked a lot about the structure and design of 20th century schools and 21st century schools. And I think when most people hear that term 21st century, we think about technology, typing, but really it's beyond that. The schools that we have currently were designed for not a global society. They were designed for and went under the leadership principles and the economic procedures of mass production. That's not where we are anymore. However, that's the system that we're trying to do a lot of these new things into. Right now, we're trying to prepare our students in a global economy, in a reality where they probably won't have the same type of job for a long time, where we value the individual motivations of employees versus just you can be a robot and put together this, or, you know, talk about curriculum or whatever. That's an entirely different mindset. And we're still trying to do that within this old system. And so going back to Dr. Bravo's point, this is actually a huge difference that is happening just with education more broadly. And to further that, we're thinking about, I heard somebody talking about the way that we're thinking about the world right now. We've just gotten so much because of this global perspective right in our faces that's been kind of living under the surface for some of us for a long time. And the way that I think about education and I think about just my whole purpose in life is, if I were to think that I was going to be born into this country and live within the bounds of this school district, and I had no control over who I was going to become, if I was going to be born into a family that was poor or wealthy, that was Black, white, Korean, that was another language, what kind of community or school district do I want to build so that I would feel 100% absolutely great being born any single possibility? Right now, not say that I would be totally happy to be any single option, because we see that people are not being treated fairly. And that goes back to this idea of just marginalized communities. Schools were not meant to tackle that issue. And so now when we're trying to do these things, we are going to get a lot of pushback because the system is working the way that it was designed to, and it's not for equitable outcomes. And so I think that the language of this matters. I really appreciate a few things about this. One, that there was a collaborative process where input was sought. And that was one of the reasons when I authored this resolution that I did not want to be the one to make the decision of what does equity work look like in our district. I am very happy to see that this is going to be structures, something permanent and something that can actually work together at the site level. This work is already happening. And I think it is important to concretize and give the labels to the work in order to increase the significance. And so I take the point that Stacy made earlier. And I think just being able to be continuously learning and reflective on that process will be getting us further in the future. My one question was, these teams, the equity teams on sites have already been determined. How were students and how were the people who were selected to be on the team selected?
Go ahead, Mr. Cerda.
Okay. So we actually, at our first Principals Equity meeting, I believe it was in June. I believe it was in June and July. We held a second one. We held that meeting with the principals, and we actually tasked the principals with, here is the equity team, right? The minimum number of stakeholders that we want represented, and we then asked them to communicate with each of their sites, and they worked with their stakeholders to identify who was interested. And as a matter of fact, one school actually has, it's my understanding, Westmont High School, they have 60 students that were interested. So they created their own equity team made up of students because they had so many students that were interested in being a part of that equity team. And also a lot of adults, so some have over 20 that are actually part of that equity team. So the principals were the ones that were tasked in identifying and reaching out to their faculty and all their stakeholders.
Okay. Thank you. Now I'll stop.
All right, is there any other feedback for staff? And if not, when would we expect the first update to the board?
I think probably December.
Okay. Trustees, anything else?
And I do just want to put my thanks out, though, for those folks that are participating in these groups, because people are very stressed right now, for sure. And I think it just goes to show the level of commitment that some people have, that, you know, that they want to be part of the work, because it is at personal cost, for sure. People are stretched. People are stressed. People are find that it feels like work doesn't stop now because of electronics. You know, it feels like it doesn't stop. And so just want to recognize the efforts and the dedication of the people that are participating in these.
Hear, hear. And I also want to do just a quick shout out to the CUHSD Ed Foundation for providing the grants to provide some funding for this year for the site equity teams on their plans for the year.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 16C, which is discuss and consider approval of resolution 26, defining the role of governance team in driving equitable change. Trustee Portilla or Trustee Brown?
I guess I can kick it off.
Yeah.
You know, each one of us on this board chose to do this governance work because we experienced CUHSD's education system as a student or a teacher or a parent. And we saw that there was need for change and we wanted to be part of that. I believe that we all see ourselves as change agents. And while we have a track record of success, we all know that there's still much more to accomplish. There's this old saying that my dad taught me, may you live in interesting times. And what's happening now in these interesting times in our district, I think is a real microcosm of what's happening in our nation. There is fear. There's fear for how our children and grandchildren will thrive in the future. And we're divided. So I believe that to meet the challenges of these interesting times, leaders at every level of government have to be better. So what does this mean? And what does it look like for us? So I go back to author James Collins, who's one of my favorite authors about leadership. And he's written a plethora of books, including Built to Last and Good to Great and Great by Choice. And he defines leadership's function is to catalyze a clear and compelling vision that is shared by the group and is acted upon. Put another way, the number one responsibility of a leader is to define and communicate a clear and shared vision for the organization and to secure commitment to and vigorous pursuit of that vision. And it takes time and effort by leaders to fulfill their responsibility, but it's worth it because as Mr. Collins outlines in his books, the impact is sustainable and long lasting. So the intent of this resolution is really for us to collaboratively define our role as a governance team in leading the district during these interesting times. Linda, you want to add anything to that?
I wish I felt better. I was thinking, not at the moment. I'd like to defer.
Okay.
Okay.
So given that we want to make this collaboratively and we really want to invite feedback from the members or the people on the virtual dais here that weren't co-authors here. John, can I share? I have the original document that Linda and I created and submitted and as part of the agenda item. Can I share that and we can kind of go through it, and if anybody has anything that they want to highlight or add or change or question, talk about things like that.
Is there anyone who does want to change anything? We'll start there.
I have one little spot, but that's it.
Do we need a screen share?
I don't need to.
Or what is it?
Okay, so first I think just this concept of, leading by example and calling out and making ourselves accountable to doing this work is the right thing. And when I read through the first time, it just kind of hit me a little bit. So I wanted to pull it out here at the very last whereas of page 1. It says the most significant indicator of whether a district will catalyze this moment into a drive for equitable change that dismantles the internal and external barriers to educational equity is the performance of our governance team in leading our community. I just want us to be able to acknowledge, I'm thinking of being a teacher at one of our campuses who's been doing this work. And I just think that, yes, we are a significant indicator, but I don't know that I would say that the board is the most significant indicator because there are so many people who are already doing this work. And so I guess my edit there would just be A instead of the most. I understand the concept of like, it starts with us. I think I was just reading it as like an employee of our district who's doing the work and feeling like it could diminish my effort. But that's one board member, so.
Yeah, and I want to be clear that it's not about we're not doing the work and not diminishing the work that anybody's doing around equity. But we're talking about, kind of what we've kind of danced around is this going to be, we have to respond and, we're at this point now where we're getting the critical mass for change. And is it going to be just the moment, or is it going to be something that's truly transformative and long lasting? And just the point of it was that if you don't have leadership doing their part of it, that you risk it just kind of being a fad until the next big moment comes along.
We know that we have wonderful
friendly edit or not a friendly edit.
We know that we have wonderful people across the district who are all in, but we also know that there are going to be pockets of pushback. We've already heard some of that. And I want to go back to the board as a leadership team setting an overarching expectation with measurable outcomes for the district, because I think that's an important piece of it, regardless of work already in progress. I said once, and everybody kind of sucked in their breath and glared at me, but I said once that we were a diverse board. I meant within our whiteness, we are a diverse board. We are 5 very different people. We are 5 people, all of us in transition at various stages in this path along the way to truly understanding the pain that so many in our community have been feeling. And Stacy and I felt that for us to truly unite and lead as a board and have credibility as leaders as a board in our community and in our district, the board has to come together and do some personal growth and reflection and agreement and form some consensus about what our goals need to be. And I think that that means we come to this from different parts of the country, different ages, different experiences, different understandings of what oppression has meant for people. And I think it's really incumbent upon us to get together and do the hard work of forming ourselves into a coherent leadership team by doing some reflection and self-study and developing a common vocabulary, so that when we talk about the things we hope to achieve and we communicate that out and we communicate amongst ourselves, we all know what it is we're trying to accomplish. And you know, we're just at various stages on the pathway to our understanding of what equity truly is. That's not a great place for us to be if we're going to lead as a cohesive team.
Okay, so Kiki asked if she could change the most to Is that friendly or not friendly?
Yeah, fine with it.
Okay, so let's change that and I'll move to approve.
Before we go,
hang on a second.
So there's a motion, a second, now discussion.
Okay.
I didn't second, by the way, if you thought I
sorry.
did.
There's
I
just
was saying, hold on, I didn't even get to say anything, so I just.
Okay, well, I'm still gonna make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, now discussion.
Thank you. One of the things that's in here is talking about, it's the be it further resolved. So the first be it further resolved talks about at our organizational meeting, talking about having 4 governance workshops for upcoming calendar year dedicated to executing the work of becoming a high-performing leadership team capable of creating the framework. I've talked about this before. We have to be very careful that we just keep throwing meetings on the calendar that are adding stress to our team. It dissolves quite often into giving direction, crashing a helicopter, telling them everything we want to see in it, and that's not our oversight role. And so I want to be very careful as we walk into this that we're letting our leaders lead that have been hired to lead. Our job is oversight. Our job is correction or adjustment, alignment, but not to crash the helicopter. And we dissolve there far too often. And we also call quite a few meetings a year. And that is taking incredible amounts of time for our leadership team away from the things that are important as well. This is not less important. It's just not this topic, but just overall talking about our meeting, since it's come up again here, I'm going to say there's a lot. Stacy already mentioned, it seems like we're meeting every day or every week in October, right? That can't be helpful at the start of a school year. And we do it. So let's please be careful. I'll continue to hold that up and hopefully consensus on it. I'm ready for it.
If I could jump in really quick. Yeah, I think the way I see this, I think it's more, I think ideally in my mind, and people might have different opinions, right? Maybe we could hash that out at the planning meeting, but I think that is crucial that this is work of the board. I'm reading this as, hey, the board really wants to do some self-discovery, wants to go through some like pretty intense diversity, equity, inclusion training to talk about how we can perform better. And that should not take too much staff time if we're doing it correctly. Because if we are, yeah, this is a year with a lot going on. So anyways, that's important to me as well, and I think we can do it. But
yeah, and
comment on us.
Yeah, and when I joined the board in December of 2014, we didn't do any governance workshops. And then we tried to start making some room for them in our calendar. and really have it be about, governance, how we are going to operate as a governance team and not 5 individual people. And we've kind of stopped doing that. And what all this really is saying, and I take your point, Robert, about not getting down in the weeds and all that other stuff, but this is basically saying that we have to carve out the time for us to do our governance leadership work. That's what we have to, that's what, we can't expect anybody else in this district to do the work around, any of this stuff. How to reopen the school? How do we, do all the equity work? If we're not even willing to take time to meet specifically to see how, we can be better.
We haven't even had exploratory conversations around equity amongst ourselves so that we can share our thoughts, our questions, our concerns, so that we can help each other, because I think all of us have something to offer the rest in terms of a perspective. And I think that we need to invite in people who've had this lived experience to further enlighten us. And I think that we also need to invite in some students. I want to hear directly from some students about how they have experienced this in their lives on our campuses. I think it's wonderful to hear summary reports from student board members. That's a very critical piece. But I would like to hear in a board workshop directly from some of our young people and be able to incorporate that into our thinking as well. I feel the board needs personal growth, and I feel that we will be stronger leaders in the district on this issue if we take the time to immerse ourselves in this in some very intense sessions.
So one thing, I agree that, we need to be people who are doing this work, and it needs to be happening outside our sessions as well, as a lot of this is very personal work. And I think I just feel compelled to say too that I want us to be responsible for doing the work ourselves too, instead of relying on like for me as a white woman to rely on people of color to come here and tell me about their oppression. I can't rely on that because that responsibility is mine. And so I absolutely want to hear from people who want to give that perspective. And that line is very clear that I need to be doing the work because I am the person who has the privilege. And so I do think that a lot of this, at least the way that I'm reading this, is we want to do better leading. And so in order to do that, we need to understand the context, we need to learn more, we need to challenge ourselves, and we can do that together. Now, one thing that's really interesting in our situation is that we can't meet just all 5 of us to do this on our own because we are board members. And that's the tricky thing here, because this is a lot of personal, really deep work that can be really difficult. And I mean, I liked what you said here in this resolution about being uncomfortable, because it's not my right to have spaces be made safe for me, even though I've been taught that and socialized to believe that because of a lot of my identity markers. And so I mean, I'm very willing to have some different sessions with, I think it would be important to have some external facilitators. And I want that time to be really, really impactful. I think we've had some efforts before to kind of do it, and we've fallen very, very far from at least where I see the mark. And so I also see that these workshops could be, the content of the workshops that we already have scheduled, because this really is the real work that we should be doing. And so it doesn't need to be an ancillary additional thing, which I think could solve multiple problems here.
Yeah. And I think that, one thing we've been talking about for a really long time is creating a governance calendar. And that's things that you can do we can actually do and execute on and help us figure out which conversations we need to have as a governance team in which meetings, and and where in what needs to wait for a workshop and things like that. But I also want to point out that where we're going to work on improvement on being a high performing leadership team so that we can get the impacts that we're desiring here. But really what our work product is in all of this, aside from the growth and the learning and the setting of the examples, is really about creating that strategic plan. And, like the whereas says, the role of leadership is to determine the strategic plan, establish and monitor measurable goals, identify and communicate milestones linked to measurable indicators of success, and communicate the greater good we hope to achieve. That's the work product of our sessions, whether it's an agenda item in a regular board meeting or a governance workshop.
And we are due for an overhaul of our strategic plan, or an update, revise, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, 2021 is the year we have to do that. So
this fits in very
really good time to integrate this work into the strategic plan in a really meaningful way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just to kind of add on to what Trustee Aerosmith was saying, I'm someone who's personally benefited a lot from having access to a lot of anti-racist training in both group settings and individual settings. And I think that that's going to be an important thing to think through as we do really deep DEI work. Some things will work very well in a group setting, and others are things that might have to be homework that you're doing on your own.
Yeah.
And that's also something that, we cannot force on anyone either, right? So if we are agreed to read through a book and discuss, or, whatever that looks like, everyone's going to bring their own willingness to dive into that work. So I don't know, I'm excited to explore it. And there's a motion and a second. Is there anything else before we vote?
So any other item in the we very much wanted this to be a collaborative effort. So is there anything else in here anywhere that anyone wants to tweak or discuss, or because
Stacey,
we want this to feel like something that the board came together around?
I think you did a great job. I think the resolution was well written. I think the points were well taken. So thank you. My point didn't poo-poo this in any way, shape, or form. It just was my time to mention what we're doing with our meetings. Okay. So thank you for the work you two did. Christina and Kaylin, the same thing. You guys did great work on yours. So thank you. I'm ready to vote.
All right. I don't know if they're ours. I think it's more, different people introduce different things, and then we discuss.
That's right.
Right.
But
so
the work you guys did.
All these have been, they've been 5 over.
Nobody knows this.
We're getting there.
We keep.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. The big overarching thing of all of this, that gets overused, but for me, we all want to end up at the same place. I mean, we know what it is that we know. I can't say we know what's wrong. We don't know all of what's wrong, but we know something's wrong. We know things can be better. Those things we know for sure. And in the course of doing this, we've chipped away at equity issues since I've been on the board. We've had different initiatives and different trainings and so on. But right now we have this, what I call a moment of social receptivity, where we can take a quantum leap forward that maybe we couldn't have taken before. And so it would have been great if the board had done this work a year ago. We didn't. I'd like us to get up to speed as rapidly as we can, because this is not something we can let pass us by. So that's sort of where we were in our thinking.
And our last piece is, there can only be 2 people working on it. People don't remember this. We mention it often, but we cannot meet anywhere except 2 people outside of a board meeting. And so we take that very seriously. You will, if you knew, if we ask, we check with each other. If somebody's talked to you about this, if they have, then we're done. And we don't, we're very cautious about what we can do. We don't get to talk about any agenda item outside of this meeting in front of the public. So this is where we wordsmith. This is where we bring resolutions and talk about them. This is where we change a word sometimes, and it still is a good resolution.
Right. So I hope this felt better as an exercise in terms of collaboration, in terms of us all being able to have our voice. And this is really a resolution of the Board of Trustees, not just a resolution that Stacy and Linda co-authored.
Yeah. Well, when I vote on something and I approve it, that's me being part of that. And I think a lot of this has come from our conversations. And like Robert said, we can only have up to 2 authors that can kind of take the conversations that all of us have, or the direction that all of us want, and be able to put it. So I feel like even though I did not write this, maybe one word, it still is, I know that my voice is in there.
We all just want to end up in a better place. We want our children to end up in a better place. That's where we are.
Okay, should we vote?
It's up to y'all. Y'all ready?
Yes,
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Gallagher.
Aye.
Trustee Airsmith.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Trustee Goitia.
Aye.
Trustee Verich.
Thankful aye.
Full aye. All right. So that passes 5-0. It takes us to item 17A, approve an MOU with labor partners for reopening schools. Ms. Hudson.
Yep. Good evening, trustees. It's Meredith Hudson, and I'm just pleased that we have rounded out the MOUs with all of our labor partners for the start of this school year. As you know, we were working with SEIU to correct some language as a part of their CBA. And so the MOU for the start of the year sort of got tied up in that. But we decided to go ahead and finalize this and submit it to you all tonight. Although the staff has been at work, back to work, working incredibly hard this entire start of the school year.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Stacy, second by Christina. Any discussion?
Just thank you for this work, Meredith and team, and SEIU and team. Very much appreciated.
Well done.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Trustee Gallagher.
Aye.
Trustee Airsmith.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Trustee Goitia.
Aye.
Trustee Verich.
Aye.
All right, the 5-0 vote, it passes. That takes us to item 20A, award contract to VNH Builders for the Blackford Campbell Adult and Community Education Petition Project.
I think Mr. Wassinger's on his way. There he is.
There he goes.
Good evening, board. This is Eric Wassinger, Executive Director of Facilities, talking about the VNH Builders for the Blackford placement of a portable for the Blackford site for CASE. We're asking the board to approve this contract. This is a contract that came in a little bit over budget. Unfortunately, because of the electrical infrastructure on this project, it's more than we had planned, but it will be covered by other projects that we have that we have a little savings in. We're asking the board to approve this project.
So one question, Eric, is this the last contract to complete this project, or is there other work that you might be bringing at a future board meeting?
Trustee Brown, this is the last project. This is completing the 7 classrooms that we have at CASE Blackford. And so this will be the last project for that site. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Director Wassinger.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, sir.
I withdraw. Go ahead, Robert.
Thank you. I noted as well that it was over what we budgeted, and thank you for noting that it was the electrician cost that was doing that to us. I also have noted that you have saved us a lot of money on a lot of recent projects. You've taken really a great care to pull things apart where you found that we could save money, and it's truly happening. when we have 12 to 15 bidders when we used to have 2 to 3. So thank you for that. It's
Absolutely.
unfortunate. It's unfortunate the electrician rate is where it is. But thank you very much.
Eric, before we vote, I just wondered if it'd be out of line if I ask you if you could tell us what's going on behind the Delmar football bowl, some sort of fencing or something.
Absolutely. So behind the Delmar football ball, it's actually the baseball field, Ms. Gotia.
Okay.
On that project there, it's actually not a facilities project. That project, I know we had some neighbors reach out to us. There's a project that the church that we work with for our PAC building, they have requested that we build an outdoor area for them to sit and have a little group. We as the district have decided to move forward with that project. There's no cost to us as a district. They're putting in 4 or 5 benches for an outdoor area for seating, for a group to go out. We can use it as a school site, so we can have a class go out there and have instruction. And so they're basically putting a few benches out there, some landscaping around this area behind the baseball field, which we can use and they will be able to use on Sundays. They rent the PAC building every Sunday. And so it's a nice group that we have with them. They've been there for many years, and they do a lot of landscaping and making Delmar, it's a beautification project. They do a lot of things for us. So that's the projects going out behind the baseball field right now.
So it's just benches, no walls, and nothing really heavy there.
Correct. They are actually, it's requested and required that they put some ADA access out there, just so if whoever goes out there has access to it in a wheelchair. But there's anything major. It's just some seating and a nice little classroom experience for us, and they get to use it for their breakout sessions.
Okay, I just was concerned about weight and soil compaction because those oak tree roots are 70 years old, and you.
Absolutely, and no, we've definitely looked through that very thoroughly.
Very good. Thank you so much for telling me.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Stacy, you have a motion?
Approve.
All right. Do you have a
Robert
second?
has a motion. I'll second it.
All right. Robert, motion. Stacy, second. Discussion? Please have a roll call vote. You're muted. By vote aye.
Trustee Gallagher.
Aye.
Trustee Aerosmith.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Trustee Goitia.
Aye.
Trustee Verich.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. 21A is board comments. Trustee Aerosmith.
Okay, so very quickly, I in my district we actually have a fall break, so I've been off this week, but still very busy. I completed the Keenan trainings for this district. I get to do them twice because they don't count in both districts, so I got to do them twice, so I got that out of the way. But more fun was the students, the superintendent student advisory council got to sit in on that meeting and just getting to hear about, how class is going and hearing about the issues. And like our student board members reported, they've identified mental health and kind of as a subcategory of that cyberbullying to really focus in on this year. And so I'm looking forward to the work that they will be doing, as that is something that's very important to me as well. As a private citizen, I have been working on Measure L, so that our schools can hopefully continue to get that local funding that will not raise our taxes. That's all.
Right.
Right. It's been so long, I don't remember who's next. So if you do.
It would be me.
All right, cool.
In an effort to keep this close, short, the AEC conference is coming up, and we have an opportunity to attend. I don't know if anybody's attended or attended more than one. I've been to about 4, maybe 5, and this should be very unique in that it's going to be virtual. So the strands will be easier to follow versus finding it somewhere in the Moscone Center, trying to keep up with your strands, but also give us an opportunity, if we attend, to really divide and conquer and get as many classes in as we're capable. I know it's not going to fit everybody's schedule, but I want to know, is anybody else thinking about attending?
I am.
Yeah, I am too.
I've been to a couple. The one thing I'll miss about the virtual is there'll be no swag.
I know, and I love seeing all the exhibits and everything.
I think that's a good thing, actually, to be honest with you. Maybe some prices come down on some of the vendors have to get this at the AEC conference.
I'm actually gonna have to miss teaching for that, so I'll have to see.
Right. And then we're hearing about homework, and the student reps are talking about it. Our student board members have mentioned it now a couple of times, maybe even 3. And so, not that I don't think students need homework, but it seems to be a concern, and I'm hoping that there'll be some kind of report about what's going on and what we think. That is all. I fly in 4 hours, so I should be good.
Nice. Stacy.
I will be brief. I want to pass along my deepest condolences to the Antone family on the loss of their son Rylan this past week. The Branham community is a deeply caring community, and I know that we will all come together to support this family through this unthinkable pain with respect and dignity. My main project in the last couple of weeks has been working with Bob and Sarah and Mark Robeson and his team on a community meeting with the neighbors at of the district office site for the Kids Initiative. And just letting them know that there are some next steps coming their way, and being proactive in our outreach to them, and living up to our guiding principle of being a good neighbor. I hope that the rest of the board can attend the meeting. It's Tuesday, the 6th next week. It's 6:30. I think that there's going to be a Zoom invite sent to everybody. And I just have to say that I think Sarah and Mark Robeson have put together a very informative update for the neighbors, and I am looking forward to the engagement. And then lastly, I just want to welcome our new CBO, April, to her first board meeting. This was kind of light, but welcome. We're really happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Linda, take it away.
A couple of items of concern. I continue on Nextdoor to hear about sideshows at the Lee Los Gatos Almaden area, and even up near Lorinda, near where you live, Kaylin.
Yep.
And I've reached out to some local officials with concern about this, but it might be more powerful if it came from Dr. Bravo. I just don't know, but it's very concerning to me that that's going on. It's very much in my mind, the 2 cars that were racing some years ago when one of them plowed into a house over there across from Lee High School and seriously injured a mother and daughter. So it really, really worries me. Another thing that keeps popping up on Nextdoor is apparently there's a gentleman in the vicinity of Branham and Dent who is behaving inappropriately in the presence of females. And I can send you some screenshots of some of that. But again, simply because it's right near one of our school sites, and I don't know how much activity we have of students coming on and off campus, but if we're encouraging outdoor clubs and activities and some socialization, we want to be sure that egress into and out of the campus is not uncomfortable for anybody. And then the other thing is something much more positive. I really want to give a shout out to Jen Orlick and everybody, I don't know if it was just Jen, but everybody who worked on the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan, our new version of the LCAP. When it went by me on the screen in slides and all that, I sometimes I just have a hard time focusing and wrapping my head around it. So I printed it all out, and I still thought, I'm still not sure I have this. So I took your slides, Ms. Orlick, and I did a condensed cheat sheet for myself on the local continuity and attendance plan so that I would really understand it. And it's very impressive. It's a wonderful piece of work. I really like the balance of the proposed spending in it, and just the way it was presented and organized. Thank you for this work.
All right. So super quick, we had our West Side Boards meeting this week. As you can imagine, it was a good experience just to learn what other districts are doing in response to COVID and how they're thinking about reopening. And so that really dominated the discussion. I think we had to say, we can't talk about COVID the first 10 minutes. What else is going on? And then kind of jump over to that. But you know, everyone's at a different stage. I think we're going to learn a lot just by kind of where they're at in the next couple weeks, couple months. And then I just want to give a quick shout out to Michelle, to Andrea Siplicus, to Lisa Downey, to Kim McCarthy, to Nick Cortez, and the entire HR team who really pulled together some miracles to raise $57,000 for all our staff who were affected by the fires. All the money has been distributed. And it was an effort just to get in contact with people and make sure that they knew this was an opportunity, and they put in lots of hours to make that happen. And that is now complete. So thank you to all of you for all the hours you put in to make that possible. And that's all I got. So I will kick it over to 22, future planning.
Karen, before you go on, I just had a text message come in, and it sort of reinforces something Dr. Bravo said earlier in the meeting, and we were talking about COVID and our planning. And he said it might be worth our while to see how this goes in other districts. I just got a text message from my sister who lives in Southeast Kansas, and her grandson Jackson is in high school. They reopened with all 1,000 students in person. And she sends me this text that 80 of the students are now in quarantine out of 1,000. And that's, I don't know whether that's because they actually are ill or because they were exposed. I don't know, but that's, didn't take very long for that to happen because they just opened 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
I just want to put that out there, you know.
Galen, before we move to the next item, can you elaborate a little bit more on where our partner K-8 districts are in terms of what their plans are to return to in-person? You know, Moreland got the waiver, and now we don't need waivers anymore because we're in the red zone. But can you just give a synopsis of what Campbell's doing, what Moreland's doing, what Cambrian's doing, what Burbank's doing?
It would be dangerous for me to do that off the top of my head without notes. But if you're interested, I could get board members to write something up and send it around.
Yeah.
Could you summarize a short, like what they're talking about? I don't need.
I think, it's different people are at different stages. I think Cambrian seems to be the one that is has announced a plan to come back. It has some reaction to that. I think each district has smaller learning labs that I know in one, I think in Union, they started with 2 pods per school with 12 students each and are looking to expand from there. And so they're also in the stage of, what do the next few board meetings look like, and kind of doing the similar process to us. I'm nervous to go too much more in depth than that in case I misspeak and cause some sort of like next door nightmare. But that could be something that maybe Dr. Bravo and his work with our feeder superintendents can update the board on as they start to make decisions. Because I know he's talking to people in the county, but these are the people whose families cross both districts. And so I think that's a point well taken.
One other thing that came up tonight that I totally forgot was our hard of hearing and deaf students. I have no idea what they're doing during this, and I'm sorry I didn't think of it. So slap my hand later, but be interested to hear how that's going.
All right, future planning, item 22.
So in the resolution we passed, number 26, we talked about creating an ad hoc subcommittee to plan out the agenda for our October 22nd meeting, and then bring back a draft on the 15th to review with the rest of the board. Do we want to talk about how we're going to do that?
Sure. Does anyone want to be on that ad hoc subcommittee to bring something to the board on the 15th to discuss?
Who was putting the agenda, who was planning on putting the agenda together in the first place?
Y'all assigned me to do it and Dr. Bravo.
Do we want somebody to join that? Does anybody want to join that? Or is it okay to just have you guys do it and just bring it back on the 15th so we can look at
Stacy,
it?
why don't you and Kaylin work together on that?
I was gonna volunteer to join, Stacy.
You were going to volunteer to join, Robert?
I
Or you were
was.
gonna volunteer me to join?
No, I was. Yes. Now that you've said that, no,
No.
I was about to volunteer, just reaching for the mute button. But if it's something that it's dear to your heart, I can get out of the way.
No, I think it would be a good thing for you to be part of that committee to create the agenda.
Okay. Perfect.
Cool. So I'll reach out. I'll shoot you a text and then we'll hopefully get some good feedback on the 15th.
Oh. Move to adjourn.
Motion dies. There's no second. But
I second.
I'll say Robert.
Are we there yet, or are we still on future planning? No, I'm
I
kidding.
think we're done.
I seconded.
Okay. Motion by Christina, second by Linda. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Gallagher,
Aye.
trustee Aerosmith,
Aye.
trustee Brown,
Aye.
trustee Goitia,
Aye.
trustee Verich.
Aye.
All right, 5-0 vote. We are adjourned. Robert, have a safe flight. I hope you find some sleep on that plane.
No problem. I'll be
Yeah.
good. I misspoke. I'm not flying in 4 hours. I'm up in 4 hours. I'm flying in 7 hours.
Okay.
Bye.
It's only midnight there. You'll be fine.
I'm good.
All right. Thanks everyone. Have a
All
great
right. Be safe.
All right.